It's going. You
Good, good.
you ever every morning be conscious that, well, maybe not you, but speaking for myself, that you fell victim to what you said, to what you claimed you would never be like when you were younger? Like, you look at your parents and you just see them like part of the system, their everyday routine of wake up, prepare to go to work, come home, talk about work, go to bed, wake up, prepare to go to work, come home, talk about work, go to bed, wake up, prepare to go to work, come home, talk about work, go to bed. Did you ever like observe that? I think it's pretty common. Maybe not you, but I observe my parents do that. And
Well,
I'm like, I'm going to be so much cooler than my parents. F that. I'm Scott Nimrod. I'm going to be a millionaire at the age of 21. I'm going to be freaking just the bomb. Like I'm basically going to be a social media influencer before social media or even the internet was a thing, right? Like I had all these preconceived notions of how my life was just going to be so like I would have people beg you to write bibliographies. It's called bibliography when someone else writes it, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a line or a queue of people just dying to write a bibliography about the life of Scott Nimrod, and
Well,
then
there's
my
still
life
time.
didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, I guess I never really grew up thinking, "Oh man, I'm that's not gonna be me." But I never really thought that's going to be me. I guess my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I guess one of my parents was always there. But my dad, I guess, just go to work or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But there's still time, man. Most people don't bloom until they're into their 40s, I guess.
I don't think there's still time when you inherit other responsibilities.
No, there
Like
is.
I find myself binge watching videos of people walking through the streets with their cameras attached to their chests in Rio de Janeiro or Barcelona, Spain. And I'm like, you know what? Like 10 years ago, I used to be that dude just roaming the streets of Mexico City or roaming the streets of Cancun or roaming the streets of San Jose, Costa Rica, just being the loner that I am, exploring the world, meeting people, having experiences, and like I used to have this thing where like this is when I had hella money, right? Where I would say my life is just more interesting when I take a trip to another country once a month. My life is just more interesting that way, and I used to commit to that. Like once a month, oh, I'm going here. Once a month, oh, I'm going there,
Hmm.
and it was enjoyable. I think like having relationships and having kids. I don't know. I think the kid part is a beautiful thing about a relationship. But everything else should be a leasing agreement. Society shouldn't commit you for the rest of your life or shame you for wanting to enjoy your life more than you enjoy your significant other. Like it's like siblings. Like, do I love my siblings? Yeah, sure. Should my siblings dictate like my quality of life? I don't think so. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know. I just think that maybe not all of us, and honestly, I think if we have a true like come to Jesus talk, I think most of us like preferably we would live for ourselves. It's just over a partner, right? I think it's just when kids come into the picture, that logic just doesn't sound right. And like obviously you don't want to like bring someone into the world and then like abandon them because you want to roam the streets of Rio de Janeiro. Like, that's where the conscience comes into play. Um, but then I don't know. I don't like where my life is. I don't like the trajectory of where I'm heading, and I'm forecasting that I'm going to have a lot of regret when 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 my time gets punched. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I don't know how to manage that. So that's the therapy session. It's
Yeah,
weird
no.
because I live in a bomb area, but still, like my lifestyle has changed. Like freaking, I have to plan. I have to plan and borderline ask permission if I have the audacity to spend more than 2 hours down the street. Like this is, I don't
Yeah,
know.
or what?
You said or what?
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I guess I'm used to being in bachelor mode and just doing whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it.
Yeah. Why don't you though?
Because I get in trouble, I get into arguments, and then it usually results in me being in family courts with cops with guns kicking in my door and telling me I missed a court date and a whole bunch of like I don't want to deal with that stuff.
Well,
So
sounds like
basically, to maintain peace in the home, I, I feel like a man is constrained by Western society or specifically the state, judges and cops, to basically just I don't, be a simp. Are you familiar with the term simp?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think that they are at all. Um, the only leverage in a relationship that someone has over you is potentially like a child support type scenario thing. Um, but that's about it. So everything else is just made up in
Well,
terms
you
of.
say that's about it, as if that's not
I mean, it's
significant.
significant, yeah, but that's about it in terms of any sort of power. So it's not really the state or anything, but I mean, you should. Child support's kind of a scary thing, I think, but at the same time, it's something that
Because it's not
should probably
logical.
be. Yeah, I know. But at the same time, as long as the person's actually using it for the kid, it's actually a responsible thing. I would assume if you get into that
Yeah, but
situation.
based on those conditions, absolutely. But when I say child support is not logical, like you have CEOs or you have people that make millions of dollars that are paying like $30,000 a month in child support. Like, how is that logical?
Yeah, it's
It's
not.
not. It's not. And somehow
But if you're a millionaire, you're probably not missing that money.
it doesn't matter. if
Yeah,
if
it
if
does.
someone makes if someone makes $30,000 a month and they're told to pay 500 a month, that's the issue, right?
Yeah, that is an issue. Yeah,
It's one thing when the kid's a teenager. Yeah, maybe it does cost 500 a month. Maybe, right? If you take into consideration like and when I say 500 a month, okay, what first of all, what is that? Is that $6,000 a year? I can't do the math.
I don't know.
No, that's not 6,000. Is it? Um, there may
Yeah,
be certain months such as school shopping, such as I think a kid. I'm kind of bougie now. I didn't have it when I was a kid, but if I have the resources, I think a kid should be able to like go out the country on vacation once a year. I think so. I didn't have it like that, but I think for a kid to be
yeah, I
like
didn't.
not to be a jerk and to be like conditioned to people that don't look like them and understand other cultures, like I think it's productive, right? Um, so I may be able to be convinced that a teenager could require 500 a month. Like maybe, right? But like a newborn or a toddler that it's really just milk and diapers.
Yeah,
Financially, it is. Financially, it
you
is.
get well,
Like
they get
I don't see that being more than 200 a month. I honestly don't.
they start eating a lot once they're, you know, eventually when they get to be a toddler and beyond. So man, you got a whole. I don't even know what the teenager world looks like quite yet, but I'm seeing glimpses of it now, and it's crazy. But I mean, regardless. So, I mean, if it's if child support is burdensome where you can't actually do anything at all, maybe it's just a sacrifice in another area, um, which should be okay. So then what? If you take down that hurdle, so what? Let's just assume for a second that hurdle's gone.
Then theoretically, I think a lot of people would feel free.
Yeah.
It's
So
just,
you could just go and
it's the fact that the system is rigged, and the more you invest in yourself, the more you get penalized when you have a family or when you have children. Really, when you have children, and things may not be the same as they were during the puppy love stage, right? And you get
yeah.
penalized, right?
Well, that's
So,
what happens, but you pay
and
it all.
I'm not saying penalized. I'm not saying penalized as in like you pay like 200-300 a month. No, I'm saying you get penalized because you have the audacity to want to improve yourself. You have the audacity to want to pay more taxes by increasing your skill set. Again, investing in yourself, and then somehow the system was manipulated where now you no longer want to make that much money because you're not incentivized, when you have kids, and things don't work out.
Well,
So
does the percentage of your income go up the more you make? Percentage, not raw
yeah,
total. So if you're
the
like
percentage. Or
if you're making
your
like
statement was, does the percentage? Okay.
yeah, I don't know because I know that there's plenty of divorced dads out there that they live totally normal lives, even paying child support. Um, but like what you're kind of suggesting is that if you make, you know, $500,000 a year versus $100,000 a year because you've skilled up, that somehow they're going to take half your money instead of 10% of your money or something like that, so that you're always at a particular line of income, never gaining. And I don't think
Well,
that's the case.
no, I think the case is the more you make, the more they take.
Well, sure, but that's because
And
it's
it
a
has nothing to
percentage.
do with it has nothing to do
This
with the
is through
requirements of the
taxes too.
child.
Yeah,
It's
it's
through
through
taxes,
taxes
but
though too.
it's through taxes. But you're saying that from a W-2 perspective, right? Like I have my own corporation, so I'm incentivized to watch this. Watch how I frame it. I'm incentivized to pay no more than what I'm obligated to pay,
Yeah,
right?
no, that makes sense. I mean,
And so I can rig or manipulate um, my reality so that I could make things towards the investment of my business and legitimately do it, right? I prioritize the business more than I prioritize my private income.
yeah,
It's,
but what I'm saying is that does that matter? If you're going from a if you so let's just say if you're a
yes,
100,000, no, it doesn't. I
it
don't think it does.
does. It,
You're saying you can't live
it's
with that
a range.
extra. If you're making $500,000 and you had to even pay $100,000 out, a year, are you saying that that actually affects your life?
Yes, yes. You want to know why?
Yeah,
Because my life is full of roller coasters. My life is full of a few years doing phenomenal financially, and then other years that can't be forecasted at all, where there's been times where I lost everything and I had to start over again, right?
hmm
when it matters a lot, right? You can ask most Asian people the way that they invest culturally, right? How they're savers, right? Having a rainy day fund, right? That stuff is important. And so for that stuff to be aggressively taken, it to me it does matter. I don't even though like my parents live check to check, like that's not how I live, nor how I want to return to it. So it's very important, especially as I get up in years, to have as much cushion as possible, especially when, and this might like turn into another discussion, especially when the whole notion of Social Security is suspect, and when people that are responsible financially put away money for their future, that you don't have socialist politicians that get into power that start diminishing people's savings because someone else that probably wasn't sound in the same decision or another demographic, well, they need that money more, right? It's very important for me to save,
Yeah,
and I want to save as much as I can responsibly without some other person that has two hands, 2 feet. They're not retarded up here. They could do the same thing. They just choose not to.
yeah. But now I mean, you're just making excuses, though. Is what you're
Excuses
doing.
about what?
I mean,
Which part is the
yeah.
excuse?
Oh, I mean, just it's not like if you do the math, like you're talking about having a rainy day fund. Yeah, you have a rainy day fund, and then what? Child support just keeps going out. It
No,
just
no, no.
happens.
Yeah, I think my argument was child support shouldn't be based on the more money you make, the more money you give. It should be based on what are the requirements for that child in order
Okay.
for them to be taken care of. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that the child should live poor or anything like that. I'm saying what is a fair amount for a child, not for another adult, right? But for a child, what's a fair amount? And taking into consideration that there's still two parents. The other
Yeah.
parent is still, if they're not retarded up here, if they're not mentally ill, and they have two hands, 2 feet, and they can do work, what is a fair amount,
Yeah, but
right?
that's kind of deflecting from the issue was well, just okay, let's just assume for a sec that it's not fair. Um Fine. Um Even with it not fair, that doesn't mean you can't have a lifestyle paying unfair child support. It's just a new tax really. But something that you actually should
Yeah,
be more likely to like feel good about paying rather than taxes because at least it's going to support the living situation, hopefully, of somebody that you presumably care about. Um,
yes, but the thing is
but
when people usually part ways. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm listening.
oh, but the whole premise was like, so it's that versus living with someone and not having and submitting to sorry, giving up your freedom to do kind of whatever you want because you're willing to you know give in to somebody else's demands that you don't go running off and having a fun time. I mean,
Basically,
yeah. So it's you. What you're saying is that you value. You're choosing the situation you're in, is what I'm saying. It's not like forced upon you. And yeah, it's the you've got potentially two evils in front of you that you both don't like, but you've decided that this one's better. So I guess in that case, things could be worse, right? Like on the bright side, you could be paying child support unfairly a month, but
I think
and doing those things.
I think it's pick your poison. Like I think most people like they want to. I think most dads want to be involved in their kid's life,
Yeah,
and they don't want to go. I would argue more than 2 weeks without having quality time with their kids at minimum, or at maximum, should I say?
Yeah, but
Um,
oh,
okay,
sorry.
no, I'm
But
listening.
so I think where I started this is why don't you just go out and do what you want? I mean, so the logical play there is that okay, you get in an argument later. Um,
No, 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 no. Like the if someone has the audacity to want to do what they want because they want to exercise what they perceive as their freedom, then there's consequences, right? The consequences is an unhappy home, right? Consequences is escalating, basi- an argument, not a discussion, but an argument, right? When
mhm,
you come home, the consequences are depending on the emotional state of the other person, them wanting to escalate, them wanting to, when I say escalate, try to get a rise or try to get you to do something that that you shouldn't be doing and that you will ultimately get the police involved, right? They'll try to escalate a domestic issue.
mhm.
That's not in anybody's interest,
Well,
except for the
it's
person that wants to retaliate.
but that it sounds like then that that's a making sure you have the self control to not get into that situation.
Okay, so what's the definition of self-control?
So an argument can happen,
Well, the
and
argument
it
will happen as long as
yeah,
someone is in your house or your
an
home. As
argument
long as
requires two sides though.
no, well, if you have
Otherwise, it's just abuse.
okay,
I mean,
okay, let's call it abuse then. Let's call it you don't want to partake in that discussion when you come home after
mhm.
having the audacity to go to Puerto Rico or some island for a couple of days to clear your head and just hang out and then come back. And then you come back home. And then all of a sudden, the person that didn't appreciate that, they won't stop, right? They're not going to leave, right? The
Mhm.
the home is shared, and they're in your ear, and they're talking about how horrible a person you are. And by the way, while you were gone, I did this, that, and whatever with so and so. Like, how long are you going to endure that?
Well, that's
If
a
there,
choice. I mean, you can endure that.
what choice?
What? You can endure it. Just sit there. That's what I was talking about self control, right? If
It's
you have the zen to sit through an argument and just not get baited, or somebody trying to bait you into an argument because they want to, you didn't live up to their expectations. Um, you have a lot of power in that situation. Then,
okay. For how
right?
long? For how long?
How long do you want it to go?
Do you work from home?
What's it worth? Yeah.
Okay. So imagine that it doesn't stop. Imagine that when you hop on a business call, they're going out their way to disrupt that business call and talking over you as you're trying to talk to customers or coworkers. Like this isn't like a half an hour thing that happens once, right? If they really wanted to destroy or disrupt your lifestyle, they can if you continue to work from home, which means that okay, now you got to go to a co-work facility. You got to pay $400 a month to to go to a co-work facility. But meanwhile, it's most people want to have a happy home, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But
And
what
depending
I'm
on the
saying is,
emotional state of another person, they can wreak havoc if on the home, even when you're not there, just to try to escalate to drive you crazy. And I'm sorry, most people they can be driven crazy if things persist. Most people, right? I will argue probably 99% of people can be driven crazy, right?
mhm.
So
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that's your choice. Then it's you're valuing this situation that you're in and sticking with it over the alternative, which is just getting out of the situation. I mean, that's clear, and
no,
I
well,
know it's not that
you
simple, but
well
I'm saying
the
like,
it it's having a child, right? So do you really want to in a relationship and lose the contact with your child? And I think most people would say no,
Yeah.
right?
So that's
So
a
most people would try to endure, but then it takes its toll. So that's
yeah.
all.
So that's what you value then. So I mean, you're getting you are in the most valuable situation then, right? And if you're not, then get out of it because but you like
And lose what?
well so it's a value proposition, right?
And lose a relationship with your child, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
lose that.
most people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah, then your choice is just that you value that relationship more, and it's good. You do saying like instead of then looking at all the things you can't do, look at the things you can do. I mean, right?
Yeah, I
I mean,
suppose.
because you could flip the script and say, well, I could do all of these things, but I will lose this valuable time with my kid or whatever. That's your other option, and it's totally there. You can take it whenever you want. Now, it sucks that you can't have the best of both worlds. I mean, where you could just do it, but maybe you could. I mean, I don't know. Is there a situation where you could somehow, take everyone, go somewheres? There's people who live on backpacks and they homeschool their kids and travel the freaking globe. They reduce everything down to a suitcase and they're able to just go. But I don't know. It depends on the situation. So you got
Uh,
two people involved. So
I say all this because a long time ago we used to like sign the pact with ourselves, saying never ever fall into that routine in which this is how we spend our life, and our life is nothing but being I don't know, I don't want to say a pawn in the system, but just being part of the system. Like
being
who wants to
scripted.
live? Yeah, who wants to live like that? And then sure enough, like you fall into it, and you're like, oh yeah, I think I understand now. Yeah, between having dependencies and which result in having responsibilities and trying to maintain saneness. All right, I think this is why people have their routines and die with regret. It's a catch 22.
Show you something here quick. Change the subject, but I'm gonna share my screen. So this was my wife's day and my days yesterday.
Let me see. I'm so hungry right now. What happened?
So my wife was sitting at a light, waiting for it to turn, and I think what happened is two cars collided in the middle, going at whatever speed, deflected one into that oncoming traffic lane, and basically hit her dead on right here. And the airbag
So,
went off, and
so one car was turning left, another car tried to speed through the light, and then the collision happened.
yeah, I don't know what the circumstances were from those ones, but I was literally on the phone call with her. I'm gonna stop sharing now. I was on the phone call with her, sitting here. I'm just like, yeah, because she's just droning on about something, and I'm like, yeah, huh? And then all of a sudden, she's like, I hear this blood curdling scream and a crash all at once, and then just heavy breathing and screaming and like, what the hell is going on? And then the phone went dead because the emergency system took over the phone to call 911 on the car. So
What year is that vehicle? It looked older.
it's like a 2013.
Okay.
I think it's 2013. Yeah, Ford Flex. Um, but yeah, so it just so then yeah, I went and picked her up and she went to urgent care to get checked out and she's okay.
And
But
now you guys are being bombarded with calls from attorneys.
no, they're
No,
no.
it happened to me when I had a fender bender, and
Oh,
all these
weird.
attorneys started calling me the very next day.
Well,
soliciting
maybe we
me.
will. I don't know.
You probably will, unless Florida's laws are just different, and there's
Could be.
specific laws in Minnesota.
But yeah, so we don't have full coverage on that one anymore. But since it's
Her
not
fault
her fault, we should be able to run through someone else's insurance.
if they have
Um,
insurance.
yeah, the two vehicles that were involved, I don't know who's ultimately at fault, but they were nicer vehicles, so I would assume that they have insurance. I mean, I just by the shape of the car. Usually, when I think of uninsured vehicles, I think of like
Uh,
pieces of crap that are beaters with a heater kind of thing. But yeah, man. So it was kind of a crazy day yesterday. But yeah, now we're down to my truck for a car, so we'll have to go car shopping here.
get her a scooter.
Mm.
And has it started warming up yet, or is it still ice?
Yeah. Well, it's still snowy ice out there, but it's in the 40s now consistently, or 50s. So I might actually try running outside later today if it's warm. Definitely this
Man,
weekend.
I don't understand how I keep getting injured, and I'm not exerting myself. I honestly don't understand. It
Well,
sucks. Like I don't. There's nothing. It's not like I can see if I like knocked off a half marathon. I'm like, oh crap, my knee is bad. Oh man, I guess I gotta take another like 3 weeks off. No, like I just do my same routine, and then randomly my knee just stops working.
hmm.
Right? Uh,
Well, there's got to be some good news for you, other
I
than
wonder. I wonder what fish do when they start having aches. Like oh, it hurts when I use my fin. Crap. Like I'm just curious how other animals respond to the aging process.
well, I think they just must adapt. I don't know. I mean, my
They
dog.
die. They get ate.
Yeah. Well, my dog's, when she was getting in her, I mean, she was clearly not comfortable, but she wasn't really like bitching about it either. I guess I don't know
Uh,
if a dog can really do that. I don't know, but they might have less capacity to understand their pain or to theorize about it. It might just we don't know how animals experience pain. We know that they do, but we don't know how they experience it, right? Like we assume that they experience it the same way as us.
I would assume it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't know that they do, right?
Why wouldn't we?
Well, like okay, so a fish,
Well,
like
no, no, no. We're talking about mammals.
okay, so you get up to a mammal. Yeah, but there's a degree of level. Like at some point, at what point does an animal's pain become conscious and where somebody would would dwell on it? We don't
Yeah,
know.
but
Like we
well,
dwell on pain.
yeah, but we know that dogs are very similar to us in regards to emotion. Dogs have depression, right? Just like we have depression. Dogs have anxiety, just like we have anxiety. That's why we don't eat dogs because they relate a lot to humans, even though DNA or genetically we're very different, but
Yeah,
emotionally we have a lot in common.
yeah, but the question is, do they dwell on it? And we don't like know for sure what
If they
animals
have
think.
anxiety and they have depression, I would call that proof of them dwelling on a thought.
Mm, or it's a chemical imbalance, right?
I mean, the same thing is applicable to humans,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
except I would argue, and I would argue that how do I frame this without getting in trouble? I would argue that a substantial percentage of chemical imbalances are induced by drugs
Oh
and
yeah.
not just and don't just naturally occur. I'm not saying that there aren't substantial cases of people that are drug free that have chemical imbalances. I'm sure that that does happen in nature, but living in Cleveland, living in Miami, as well as having to deal with certain things myself, it's it can be chemically induced or ingested, and that is the consequence.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm just saying, do they dwell on it, man?
I think they do. I've had a number of pets. I know when they're upset. I know when they're happy. I know when they're horny. I had a cat in heat. The cat used to try to sit on. I would have to wear socks around the house because the cat would try to. It would try to like sit on my toe.
Oh God,
Yeah.
man.
So,
There's got to be something going right though. Not everything's crap, right?
and I get paid every Friday on court to court. If I was a drug addict, I'd be in heaven.
Well,
So
good thing you're
that's
not.
going right. Every time I look up, I have a deposit into my account.
Job's still going well then.
Um, better than most of my jobs. There's a challenge with I still struggle with how to manage my time. I like to obsess over one thing and with a focus to complete it. I know that beach delivery may not be a good example of that, but I think I was consistent with beach delivery for a while until I got this job, and then my priorities just changed. But yeah, I just struggle with context switching and trying to, or if I'm going to context switch because it's the nature of the business that I'm in, based on my responsibilities, damn it, how can I just get something done as I go through the round robin effort, right? Yeah, you like that term round robin, right? Yeah, that's my computer science course. And so that's something that I just still try to manage. Is like instead of reporting like what I'm working on, like how can I just get something done? And it's complicated because I still get inundated with messages and support items and action items after all these meetings. I'm in meetings all day. So it's just something that I don't, I still haven't mastered how to be most effective at
Hmm.
or efficient at.
No
What
work
about
on
you?
beach delivery.
At the end of my day, I don't want to look at a computer. Like I went 2 weeks without looking at my email, like my personal email, before I realized that my website was down.
Oh, geez.
And it took another 2 weeks. It just came back online yesterday. So I didn't have email for a month.
Hmm. Well, that's probably nice.
Well, I mean, at the time I didn't. I would check my email like every like 3 to 4 days, my personal email, just because I don't want to look at a monitor. I don't. I just when I'm on my phone, I just look at YouTube videos of motorcycles, and I still obsess over which one I'm going to buy. And I put a deposit down on two different motorcycles. I put one down 2 days ago
So you are looking at a monitor then.
on my phone, watching YouTube video
Yeah.
reviews,
Hmm. No,
thinking
my
about.
oh, good.
No, listen.
I was gonna say because you asked how I was doing. Yeah, my job's fine. Um, trying to do some like deep dive into like some data right now. Actually, it's kind of have enjoyed looking at the data and drawing conclusions from it, and it's seeing what how things played out from a data perspective. It's kind of interesting. But I also found like bugs related to related to things, and it's like I don't know. I keep waiting for like a big project to hit where I can just another big project where I can just go really deep on something. It seems like it's hard for people to pull the trigger on doing specific things. And I like to have like the business behind whatever I'm doing.
That would be a smart decision.
Yeah. What I mean, like they not just behind it, like businesses can get behind, but it's not driven by them. some cases. So like if you have to do some sort of big infrastructure thing because you see that we're going to have like, whatever, it's like a cost center type item, right? It's
Yeah, I came across something like
they
that.
don't really want to do it, but they know that they have to. So it's just like, okay, versus like we're really excited to do this new thing or this thing or change this or to rebuild this, and we're going to put resources from other teams behind it. It's not just a self-driven type thing in terms of IT or technology. So what are you saying though?
Yeah, I found myself doing that where you make discoveries. Have you ever like have you ever whether as a lead or as an architect or someone that makes decisions had a, a project, greenfield project, and as you're like making progress on that project several months later, you're like, oh crap, we need a mechanism to resolve this, or we needed some form of a system to resolve this challenge right here. That's a dependency. Um, and you realize that there's like separate projects within the project
Uh, yeah, I can't think of any
that
examples off the
that
top
that
of my
get
head, but yeah.
discovered. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you find stuff here, like the things you didn't think about along the way for sure, or you thought would be easy or
yeah. You
simple
put a
and aren't.
placeholder there, and then like two months later, you're like, all right, well, crap, this is the placeholder. Oh crap. And you just start going through the analysis phase. Like with me, I like to. I think I'm one of few people, one that enjoys writing, and then two, um, prefer to have a design doc about something that needs to be built, so that it can then be shared with other decision makers, so that there's clarity or that provides opportunity for me to be corrected before I go full throttle into a direction. All right. I like doing that, but I learned that it's not really popular with the majority of folks. They just want to just start writing code without
Yeah,
documenting their thoughts and their options before executing.
yeah. I like to have a plan in place. I don't like to document too deep, but I like to. I have to be able to see the outcome in my head before I will commit to working on something. Like I just logically can't seem to commit to working on something unless I can see the outcome or like the how and all the steps in the in between. Um, Outside of software dev, like this was it with let's say my camper when we bought it. It's like we ripped out the floor because it was crappy, and it's like okay, I had to formulate for a few like a week or two what how am I going to put this back together, like, and I thinking through all of the crap that I needed to buy, the wood and the way that I was going to structure like putting it back together, and you know how I would accomplish all of it. And then once I got everything in my head, it's it's go off to the races. Um, that's the same thing with one of these bigger projects that I did at work and my current work. We replaced a offering that we had, and it's just like it took a sprint for me to get the entire vision in my head, and then I after that I was able to just pound it out. But I don't know. I think I think maybe you're probably in the same vein, but you just like to write it down, and I don't. I like to have conversations. I like to get the mental model in my head.
When I write it down, it solidifies my understanding.
Yeah. Well, I think putting it onto like drawing a picture and stuff like that, and writing does help. But also you can do modeling if depending on the size of the problem, you can do code modeling too without writing stuff, and that helps.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, yeah,
this is more at an integration involving several systems, and so it wasn't clear to me how to really model that in code versus write out the considerations in a formal document.
yeah, I suppose you could write.
And I still have this bucket list of I want to work on an aerospace project and deploy something out of this world. I still want to do it. I just feel as if it's probably likely I'll be miserable doing it just because of how highly regulated it is, and maybe it stipends creativity. And I like to be creative. All right,
I don't know, man. Sometimes constraints, actually, a lot of time constraints
or liberating.
make creativity easier. I don't want to work under. I don't want to work under lots of like hard constraints because I mostly what I don't like is the documentation involved with constraints, but um, I should say government constraints. But yeah, it's constraints can be liberating. Yeah.
I don't know. When I observed the Perseverance rover being entering the atmosphere and landing, and the whole orchestration, and I'm like, oh, someone wrote that code. And I was just in awe, and I'm like, man, that is something to have on your obituary. I mean, I know most people are like, no, it's not, but to me, it's like they literally like wrote some code and watched it execute on another planet, like freaking 60 miles away or 30 miles away. Like I think it's more than 30 miles. Hold up, 60 million miles away, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's like I could die now. Like to me, I just think that's an awesome achievement. And it's like when I saw that, was it maybe a year ago, maybe a couple years ago? I was like, I want to have that type of emotional like experience for something that I did professionally. Like when's the last time you had a positive emotional experience for something that you've done professionally outside of like a job offer?
Um. Yeah.
Like
Small wins, but yeah.
have you ever wept out of
No.
happiness because of something you deployed? No.
No. I mean,
But you look at the reaction of those NASA engineers when they're in the room, and it's like 100 of them, and they're all like waiting for that. What is it? 7 minutes of terror, and then it it touches down, and like half of them start crying, jumping up and down. And it's very rare that you see a whole bunch of guys just clutching each other, right? Like I want to be a part of that. That's way more awesome than fetching balls for a living in the
yeah.
stadium. Like that's gay. Like I'd rather do something that actually like matters. That is about what I contributed and isn't about entertaining a whole bunch of other people. Right. That's a real contribution. Not fetching a ball. Anyways,
Well, get at it then. Time to get your NASA applications in.
I won't get through the job interview. I won't.
That's an excuse. You should try. Have you
I'll
tried?
try. They'll
Just
give me
try.
like a basic like fraction division problem, and I'll like I don't know how to solve this. I remember the FOIL method. I don't even remember that what that stands for. Have you heard of the FOIL method for
Oh,
the
yeah.
division? Is it? No, no. You're taking. I don't even know what it
Is that
is
an
anymore.
algebra thing? I can't remember, man. I don't remember
I
half the
thought it
math.
was multiplying fractions or something. I can't remember. It's algebra. I can't remember the FOIL method.
FOIL method. It's an acronym to figure out first, outer, inner, last. Method is an efficient way of remembering how to multiply binomials in a very organized manner.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't even know what a binomial is. That another name for a fraction? What's a binomial?
A binomial is no, a binomial is like I think two expressions multiplied by each other. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I remember
I
now.
know,
Yeah. So
yo.
when you have like x squared plus 1 minus 2y equals 4k minus 3 times 2x, right? And then you use the FOIL method, which I can't remember how to do, but yeah, we I had that in seventh grade
Do you
with
ever wish that you could?
Mr. Pugh.
Do you ever wish that you could go back and do like your basic schooling again? Now that you like, not basic schooling, but
I wish I could
like
go
now that
back
you're an
to.
adult and you appreciate certain things, you know what you want to learn, but you don't have the opportunity or the like it's considered potentially below you. Like you know what I mean? Like this happened with me with computer science. Like I went through an assembly and organization and I fumbled my way through it. But I'd like it would be kind of cool to go through it and deep dive into that again. It's not going to contribute, but this stuff with math too. Like I look at math completely different now than when I was a kid. Right? I'm realizing that all you have is before you is a problem, and you have a set of tools, and you're applying the tools to the problem. And all it is pattern recognition and matching and applying the correct tool based on the pattern.
Well,
And
that's a
it's like with
calculator.
that. Well, no, I mean with algebra and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just a matter of just like I said, yeah, applying the right tool in the right situation. Um,
So I would say that I'm probably better positioned to do math than I was in college, only because I think I'm I think I'm really good now, especially with functional programming, that my mind looks at problems differently than it did um, when I was in school or when I was an object-oriented programmer. Like my mind just looks at things differently, and it's obvious
mhm.
to me when I'm working with other people, even when I'm doing UI development or I'm doing back end development. It's obvious that the way that my mind processes challenges is completely different from like my counterparts. So in a way, yeah, but my hardest, my biggest struggle with school was physics. And till this day, and I think I shared with you, it's probably been like maybe 6 months. I still have nightmares about me missing a physics lab, and I can't graduate. Like
Yeah,
I literally, I still have nightmares to this day that I can't graduate from Cleveland State University because I missed a lab.
you need to confront your fear and go to back to school and take a physics class.
Well, that's 5 credit hours, man. That's too expensive.
Man,
It was physics one and physics two. I'm sure maybe one of them relates to computer science. I don't think both of them do.
well, it's physics, so it's physical stuff. I mean, computer science is more mathematical.
Um, well, computer science is computer engineering would require physics.
Yeah, yeah, because then you're dealing with the physical nature of a machine. Computer science is really a mathematical discipline.
I don't even use computer science. Do you reference big O notation?
Occasionally,
When?
when we were looking at like
When you're
performance,
sorting?
bad, well, like processes that are like bigger processes and stuff like that. I don't very often. I know to think of it in terms of it, but um, I couldn't. I know
Yeah.
people that do, and I know the context like I would the same, but I just don't even know which O to put, or I know this is
Log
going
in.
to, yeah, I know that this is going to perform linearly or constant or logarithmically or exponentially. Um,
N
but
squared.
just which O to put. I don't know. Actually, it's helpful. I should just print off the chart where somebody put down the like different O notations and what they should have been named. Like, oh yeah, oh, or like oh no, oh shit, or something like that. You
The
know?
only time I have reference big O notation is when I look at other people's code and they have these ridiculously nested for loops, and that's the only time big O notation comes to mind. I'm like, dude, like, why did you do? Have you considered the dictionary at any part of this?
That's right.
Right,
So
and that's
oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, I just pretty much use dictionaries, and that resolves most of my big O problems.
So the one was so O1, which is I believe constant, is oh yeah. O log n or whatever was oh nice. O of n is okay. O of n squared is oh my. O of 2 to the n power is oh no. And then O n, I don't even know how to read
N
it.
to the n power.
It's n, well, it's n. What's the not symbol after, or the exclamation point? Is that fact? It's
Factorial.
yeah, it's O. Well, anyways, that's OMG, and then it's O n to the n power is oh shit. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I should just print this off and put it on the board. That, and I got to print off that a copy of that SQL join thing because I referenced that again just the other day.
I like my FP stuff still carries over. So how often do you use links aggregate function?
Um, Occasionally, not as often as I use filters and maps, um, but I do. I mean, I use some obviously as a type of aggregate function, but um,
It always takes me like half an hour to figure out how to use it in C sharp.
yeah,
It takes
it's
me
just like
forever to figure out how to use it.
where does where does the where does the starting or the seed value go again? Is it before or after? Because it's different in C sharp than it is in JavaScript, so I always get those two mixed up.
Uh,
But it's no, I think that I it's always the accumulator. I think it's accumulator comma, then it's accumulator current, then you do your thing
it,
inside of that.
it was
But
like
you ever use the join?
I thought it was accumulator, comma, and then you have a tuple. Like
It's
at
not a
least
tuple. It's well, it's a it's a two parameter function, so it's basically a tuple, but um, it's not. Well, I guess I don't know if you.
if you're separating it with a comma and you have to have both of it, uh, the visual representation is a tuple.
Yeah,
You could have a
actually,
tuple of functions. It's still a tuple.
well, yeah, actually, now I'm thinking about it. So, like, how do you describe differently a function with two parameters versus a function with one parameter that's a tuple in
They're the
C
same
sharp?
thing.
Yeah, they're effectively the same thing, but they're logically not the same thing. One isn't a wrapped object, right? Is an actual structure.
So within
Oh
functional
no, you'd have one argument, or you'd have one parameter value. So
within functional
yeah, it's not the same.
programming, one having one argument is the same as having five arguments.
No, I was talking in like C sharp though. It's
Uh,
like you'd have one parameter in the case where you have a tuple use. You'd have one variable that comes out of the call stack, right? In a case where it's a tuple, you'd have one. In a case where it's not, you'd have two. So think of
uh,
like if you had a tuple that's a point, right? You'd have
okay.
x. You'd have a tuple would be
X,
two
Y.
integer values, but you'd call that like a point pt or something like that.
Yep.
So that'd be your argument name. But if you were expressing that as two parameters, it's x and y separate, right? So it's
Yeah.
decomposed. Sorry, I'm just yeah. So it's no, you don't actually get a tuple when you call the aggregate function. You get two arguments that could
Uh,
form a tuple.
I was just saying that in C sharp, it just takes me forever to figure out how to use the aggregate function. and
Trade means
only
join.
what does join do? It sounds.
It's a
I
it's
thought
a
I used that
join.
for like strings or something.
No, it's two. Well, you do string join for that's concatenating a series of strings, but there's a join link function that is even more complex than the aggregate, way more complex, because you have two collections. You have to define the joining keys on each, and then it's like, yeah, it's that one takes me forever. And then
Yeah,
there's
I never used it.
I think there's two join types. There might be like a group join. The join operator, but I feel like there's a separate join. Yeah, so the join takes the outer collection as the uh, sorry, extension method like this or whatever. It takes the inner collection, a function to select the outer key, a function to select the inner key, and then a function to select the result. And then there's another one that extension of that takes a comparer for the actual key value in case you need in case it doesn't work with the standard one. Ooh, where did this come from? Oh yeah, so group join. That's the other one. Sorry, I probably should show where I'm at. I think group join is confusing too. Maybe it's not as confusing as the other one is. That takes an inner outer key selector, inner key selector, and then the result selector. So maybe it's the same. It's just different operation.
So I successfully introduced a F sharp project into my job. They didn't like it, but I'm the architect. But
Maybe I should.
it's nothing but type declarations. Stage two is, and maybe I have to give it some time, maybe like another 6 months. Stage two is get some actual business logic injected into a repo that's in F sharp and slowly inject F sharp developers.
Maybe I should pick up F sharp again, or try to pick it up. I mean,
I'll try to pick up Clojure. And at a high level, I think I understood the gist of it, but it didn't want me to trade in F sharp for it. I like my compilers.
I like the I did I do like the modeling capability in F sharp though, just the ability to express what you're trying to model. It's so much cleaner, but I just don't know how to build applications with it. Or like actual solutions. I got to
Well,
figure that out.
I got repos to show it. It
I have to do it though. But I have to find a project where I'm actually going to work on it to learn it.
so you build your applications. The difference in how you build applications between OO and F sharp is if we're talking about applications, you still have OO, right? You're still going to have your UI layer. You're still going to have your data persistence layer or your data store layer, right? That's
Hmm.
still usually OO, right? It's stateful. The only difference is how you write your business logic. And so your business logic is really just pure functions.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Instead of having member variables um, and classes that have both properties and methods, no. In functional programming, you just have functions. There's no member variables. You you have functions and you have records, and that's it. That's the only difference is how you write your business logic.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. It's just all of the what I should say is I don't think it's that so much as like which libraries to use and how to incorporate them. It's just the patterns are so ingrained for like how to structure services and things with
Well,
uh, multi paradigm language. So
and you have like this pipeline of functions, and so
Yeah, you compose
You
them
have
all.
your yeah, so you have your function signature that you may have in your business domain library, and then you have some maybe a couple parameters or whatever within that function signature, and then it's common to it's it's common to just start the pipeline with the parameter values that you have, and then you just keep piping it to other functions until you have the type that you're supposed to be returning, right? So
Hmm.
that part's a little bit different, but that's kind of similar to your Fluent API, right, in C sharp, where you just have the dot notations on each line
Yeah.
of a link
Do you ever use the
expression.
actual link expression language, like the actual in C sharp? The
Are you talking
actual
about
like.
the tree thing, the syntax tree, or the?
I mean,
Are
do
you
you always
talking?
use the extension methods, or do you ever use the from X in
Oh no,
set?
I never use it. The
Yeah.
only time that I even see it, I never use it. The rare times that I do use it may be with Entity Framework, but that's it.
Yeah. I don't know why the extension methods are. I guess because it's like I don't know. It's just like why do you people use the extension methods instead of that? I've never really figured out why they added that feature and then people didn't decide to just extension methods. We'll just use those instead.
With Entity Framework, it models um, SQL more than it does using your idiomatic link expressions
Yeah.
because you have from, select. I thought you
Which is
had
why they
when.
named it, yeah, instead of filter and map. I bet a lot of confusion would go away if they just named it filter map and reduce instead of
Yeah,
select pair and aggregate.
yeah, because I still struggle with it because I'm like, all right, how would I do this? Like when I was talking about like how I used aggregate, it took me half an hour to figure out how to put the syntax together. Because I mean, it's mapped in my mind like the basic building blocks within functional programming of functions are map, filter, reduce. Right? Reduce
Yeah.
to me is analogous to a fold, and so like if those are three Legos and I could build anything from that, then I'm like, all right, how does C sharp do this? Map is select in C sharp, filter is where in C sharp, and reduce is aggregate in C
Hmm.
sharp. And that's the only way I can remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually used that as a kind of an interview question at one time. Was like I think I talked about filter map reduce because the person wasn't familiar with C sharp, and then test if they knew that, and then I was trying to relate that back later. It was like, okay, do you just to get a gauge on how much C sharp they actually did, and can you name the things in C sharp that respond to those deals? But Link, man, I really like it.
Did you
Wish more
pass on
people
them?
used it. No, no, this was an internal thing, and they already basically had the job. We were just evaluating their like how
Oh.
much they knew to know where to
Where do
place
they
them or
come from?
whatever.
JavaScript or Java?
JavaScript. They actually come from a QA background, but it was
Oh,
they mostly knew like JavaScript and Go and Python, maybe I think. Go being like the primary one that they did. So, um, but no, it's cool. One of the people on our team is leaving. Damn it.
oh, you like them or her?
Yeah, it was a he. Yeah, I liked him. He's gonna be gone after next week.
Go with them.
No, I like solving problems in this e-commerce domain with this particular, like the people we're actually serving, as much as like in every domain people complain about the software, but I just wish I could help them more than what I do.
Are you guys hiring architects?
I don't know if we are right now. Let me
My
check.
contract is up in 1 month.
Yeah, I don't think we do any contract work, so it'd have to be a
Tell them it's
FTE.
Scott Nimrod.
Who? I don't think we have any architecture positions. Of course, here I don't really understand what our architecture team does. I know they do things. I'm not saying that's not a pejorative way of saying that or a
Well,
knock. I just
for
don't know.
HR, for HR, my title has to be architect in order for me to get the money that I'm asking for. I can
Why don't you
still write
come on
code
and be a director of engineering in my area,
if I can write code.
or be a principal software engineer?
I'll do that.
There you go. You can be a principal in my area.
I'll do that. And then
Anyways,
finally we'll have technical arguments. You go, I can't work with Scott. Like then HR pulled me into the room. Scott, what's going on? Like, no, Sean, man. I keep on trying to explain to him, but I don't know. It's like it's not registering. I think he has like this bias going on in his mind that he's not aware of. And I'll just start.
I know all that bias that I have.
Oh. Let me
We
try to
don't
get this
actually have
Friday
an
over with.
we don't actually have an HR department. We do, but we don't. It's called People Success Department.
What does HR really do besides put together people's compensation package?
Well, they deal with all of the benefits and stuff after that, but they also deal with like uh, training and also issues with like
What do you mean
also like
security training?
conflicts.
Like, don't click on this suspicious phishing button
Well, the security
or
team
message.
drives that, but like HR would be probably responsible for helping roll out that or making sure that people do it. But documenting people's files, they deal with all of the I don't know the like issues with payroll and stuff like that.
Okay. So
It's like
they have a
everything.
useful function.
Yeah, I don't. I mean,
They're
I
not
think
like
you
libraries.
need to have an HR department. I just don't. I like what we did because it's an HR department, but it's not called human resources, which is kind of a I don't know. When you think of humans as just resources, it like I don't know. It's that old thing like we're not resources, we're people. Damn it. So I like that somebody took that seriously and didn't just gloss over the fact that HR flags people as resources. So, although resources, I don't know why I got a pejorative like sound to it. Like,
Well, I mean,
why?
honestly, it makes sense to me.
I'm a
You know,
resource.
it makes sense to me though. You want to know why?
Yeah.
It's not personal. It's
Yeah.
business. Like
You're thinking of people as like like a commodity.
it, if it's really about business, then like we shouldn't be in our feelings.
Yeah. Anyhow, I got to run here. I got to get some more coffee and hit a bio break before my stand up. So,
All right. Thanks for the
till
therapy
next week.
session. Send me an
Yeah.
invoice. We'll catch up. See you.
One of these days. Yep. See you. Bye.